So shall we make a start? So I'm running a bit blind here because we didn't have the session before, but yes, Tex has brought up the current agenda. So the first item will just be, I mean, especially for those new folks joining us, would be just to review what exactly the OSC is doing, what are our current priorities. So let's bring that up. Do you have a link to the? I'm just trying to find it on this page.
Which is it?
No, so this is it, but we should also have our current priorities up here. So
they're within the strategy, but definitely something we can work on
within the
reorganization.
Okay. So just a reminder of sort of where we are, and I think the 2 weeks ago we did, or 4 weeks ago maybe, we did a review. I wasn't around 2 weeks ago. We did a review of where we are in each of these, but sort of what we're looking for right now. So the first goal by Q4 2024, everything has been all Cardano projects that are maintained within the Intersect org have been audited and made a decision about where they are, what the status of those is. Now I think, what was the status of this text? Was some way through doing this, or?
Yeah, so the audit is underway for the third or fourth iteration of it. Basically, I've set a deadline for end of September now that we have a security policy. So with that aligning right with the end of Q3, at the beginning of Q4, we'll be able to make sure that any updates from like the project incubation working group are applied, just to make sure that we can have a listing of where all the projects are. But the audits, if there is anything incomplete, we'll start attacking those repos or talking to those devs a little bit deeper there, try and figure out why it's not up to par. So 100% of the projects will be audited. That is the case already.
Okay.
And I'm shooting for an 80% completion that factors both the required. Well, the required I'd like to see at 100%, but I'm factoring at least 80% across the board. That way, some of the projects that may not be as mature, they'll have a little bit of time to get everything together.
What is so I noticed here we've got something. Sorry, Robin, go for it first.
No, thanks. I was just about to ask who's performing these audits. Is there a group formed? Is that a working group, or who's doing that?
So the audits are done by the open source office. So specifically, that's myself. Let me see. Oh, I have it here. Hold, please. I apologize. So this is the audit that I run. So you can see here the last date that I'm working with, September 10th. This was before going to the open source summit. This was also when we had the security policy come out. So there's a number of documentation repos that are for internal purposes. Because those are all filled out by template, those are all going to show the complete. And they do have this is the baseline security policy that we have right now. All these other ones, Antea, Spec 32, if you haven't had a chance to look through the repos, these are, what I'm going to say is the majority. I just found that there's 3 more public repos, so I'm going to be looking at this again. But basically, I sent through a request for everybody. When it says active over here, this indicates that there's an active issue on that repo for the security policy to be updated. And for all these other updates as well. So when we get to something like here, AirGap is obviously a newer project in this instance where they haven't fully filled out their description or assigned a license, put out their code of conduct, who's maintaining it, etc. Cardano test plans. Now this is all related with like transactions and updates and either node or ledger project. So I'll work between those groups to figure out why this one is still sitting in a backlog and not filled out. The way that the maintainers do it, they have kind of just a weird way around the way they use those repos. And so it's just a conversation to understand what is the status of this and when we get it updated. But it's in a clear color format here. The red is something where it's missing and it's required. The security policy in orange, because it was new, just came out. And then the yellow here is not required, but preferred. It's like an ease of use, or makes the repos easily understandable for new developers or newer developers, newer contributors nonetheless. So we'd like to see this, and if these columns don't get filled out, that's fine. But we do want the red ones to be taken care of, and between the OSC and the TSC, y'all be able to decide if you want these to become required or if they stay as just recommended. Questions?
Diane?
Is there is it all the same maintainers? It looks like check with Ryan. Is there a way you could add a column in here who is the lead person so that you know who it is that you're contacting? Because it sounds.
Yeah. More than happy to add that in. Yes, I can absolutely adapt this report to include or to merge with our maintainer list. Yeah, Christian could probably better answer that one.
Yep, I'm doing an audit, part of our co-diversity initiative for repos, so I'm mapping out who we currently have. I'll have that before our next committee meeting.
Thank you.
So I had a question about, not about this, but about the other thing was we also had a goal there of 50% of projects have a diversified funding model. Can you elaborate on what, is that still intended? Is that, and what does that mean?
We will get to that. That's tied in with the whole budget process because that's where the funding would come from. And I think we have a budget talk associated with this. I've transformed that into the maintainer retainer piece in the budget proposal. So that's for discussion, but we budgeted 50 repos at $1,500 per maintainer times 2. And we can talk about how we divvy that up, whether it's based on repo complexity, etc. But that was just a base figure. And I think it puts it at 150,000 budget spend.
I guess the other question was about, you know, what does the diversified funding, that seems to suggest that these things should not be just Intersect funded.
Yes, and there's different things we can talk through as a committee about how to do that. I've, with the commercialization working group with Pat, came up with the incubation process and then a product boot camp to help with VC funding, find clients and stuff like that. So that's one support structure and why we set up the working group under the open source committee.
Adam?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking the corporate sponsor model probably makes a lot of sense for those that are going to be pursuing either work contracts and or utilizing Cardano in the future as well. So that's definitely a path to pursue. Maybe IOG volunteers a certain number of engineers to be maintainers, kind of to place their flag, for lack of a better term, on.
Okay, so just maybe let's we just go through quickly to the rest of these goals. So goal 2 would be effectively aligning with the government's policy, and in particular about using sort of open communication channels. So this work is in progress. I think most places have the governance policy implemented, but there's still a lot of private conversation going on, right?
Correct. We'll have this, and we've already made projects aware they're supposed to be in full enforcement by the end of September. So next week is our hound and get them caught up if they haven't done it voluntarily.
I think when it comes to core, though, we're probably getting pretty close to the 70% from what I've seen in the Discord discussions, and being aware of when meetings are happening and everything. We've definitely come a long way from where we were at the beginning of the year, so I'm excited about this part.
I just got to clarify which chats cover which repos, because I think they wanted Node to cover a lot more projects than just Node. So that's going to serve as the meta project committee. I just want to make sure they're all aware of the policy, etc.
So the third goal is the sort of diversity of maintainers. So I think this we're doing roughly okay on, I believe.
Yeah, I think we'll be less than 50%, but it is a rollover in 2025 once we get a budget assigned to it. But I think we've already got more contracts with Twig anyway to help with that diversification and moving away from IOHK as the main, as well as well-typed, somewhat dequadrant, etc. And then we do have Atom on Cardano addresses. So.
And then goal 4, which is pretty much so establish a security framework. So that's largely been done and sort of spun out into a separate working group now. That's now answering to the TSC. Though I think this committee is still sort of taking responsibility for making sure that projects do adhere to anything set out in that security policy.
Yep, security MDs. We'll have security MDs updated to reflect all this by end of this month as well, just to make sure we're in timeline.
Goal 5 is to make sure that we can get a change into core Cardano code, and I think that was achieved by Adam. So congratulations for achieving the sole unambiguous success. We can't. Well, I can't hear you. I don't know if anybody else can.
Is everybody else able to hear me, or?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say we went even beyond the modification of Cardano addresses and got a modification into the input-output GHC JS shim as part of that maintainership. So we kind of went even a step above and beyond a simple doc commit merge. So we're pretty excited about that.
So yeah, these are the current goals. Oh wow, that was dramatic. But as you can see, a lot of them we're starting to tick off. So I think one of the new things we'll have to sort out is what will the next set of goals for Q1 2025 be. Tex, you have it?
Yeah. Just switching over here to the shared drive. I believe each of you have been added or given access to this here. Basically, just showing you around what we have as far as like folders for our working groups and whatnot. But wanted to put a document together here as well. Probably gonna archive these later. But let me get a new Google Doc here. And let's title this 2025 strategy OSC strategy draft. And I will leave this open here, but feel free to go ahead and utilize this for drafting of what you all want in the strategy. All right.
Yes.
Real fast too, I will share with everyone. So when we did the original strategy, we did a big community feedback survey and then focus our strategy on the first goals. So I'll share that with everyone to help deliberate where we want to go next as the next iteration of that strategy.
All right. So then moving on to the next item, and unless anyone has any further questions about current goals or future goals, etc. Okay. As always, all of this can be, I think Tex shared a link to where these goals are currently found. So the next item on the agenda, interview session for OSC electorates. Do you mean electorates?
Just meaning those that were elected in.
I think that would be electees.
I,
Electorates would be the bodies that are electing people. Okay, so
Yes, for once, someone other than me is bad at English. I'm going to celebrate this.
I think I was just confused as to what exactly this item was because I couldn't work it out. So I guess, yeah, we have 3 new folks here today, which is not everyone who was elected. Maybe Diane, do you want to start and give an intro?
Sure, I'll go first. So as it says, I'm Diane Mueller, and I'm the Director of Research and Advisory Services for Bitergia, which could mean anything, and pretty much does. I have been in open source for over 30 years, and as I like to say, I'm older than dirt and have been through a lot of different projects, but this is my second Web3 open source initiative that I'm part of. I also work and do some coaching over at Hedera. And I have been in the CNCF Linux Foundation ecosystem for the past 12 years, doing a lot of different open source projects and helping draft their contributor strategy and contributor mentoring work recently, but was also for 10 years at Red Hat as a distinguished community architect, so developing different projects and helping them build their open source communities. And prior to that, I was in a bazillion different startups in the Vancouver, British Columbia area, which is where I hail from. So I'm on West Coast time, and it is redonkulously early right now. So that's who I am. And if I look slightly sleepy sometimes when I first log in, that's why.
Thanks. Robin, can I go next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Robin Böning. You don't need to pronounce my surname correct if you if that's a problem. Just call me Robin. And yes, I'm a software engineer for I think the past two decades now, and in open source for some time as well. Probably the last 15 years or so. And I think what I've said in the past interviews was I've seen a lot of different open source projects, how they're maintained, and the communities, and how people interact with each other. And so I hope I can use my experience to contribute to what we're doing here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you. Is there anything else to say? Maybe I'm a stake pool operator, so I would say I'm rooted in the Cardano community as well. And what else? Maybe what's worth mentioning, I'm not sure, is like I guess it's like 10 years ago already, but similar to what you might know is Google Summer of Code. I was involved in something that was set up as Rails Girl Summer of Code, so like same kind of structure, but for like a different scope, more in the Ruby space, more specifically. So I was working on that project. That was fun. Lots of open source tools coming out from students, and that was nice interactions, and was a nice project. Any questions? Feel free to ask.
Nicola?
Hello, everybody. So my name is Nicolas. I'm from France. I'm working for IOG. I've been co-maintainer of Marlowe. It's been a couple of years now that I'm in the Cardano ecosystem. I'm a Haskell developer, and today I'm like working to the innovation team, pushing some innovation into some of your repos. So I'm new to this team, so I'm gonna have a new relationship with the members of the Intersect organization. So yeah, more than 15 years of software engineering and suffering. So yeah, I like. I'm a product guy behind everything, and I like to serve customers, the best I can. That's my mindset. My mindset in my job. So yeah, nice to meet you all.
I've just seen we've had a bunch of other people join the meeting. Have I missed any new members that have joined the meeting? I'm trying to actually find a list of members.
Working on
we've
that
had,
right now.
Simon and Newman joined, but I believe those are from our ambassadorship program.
Okay.
Yeah, we had Diane, Robin, Nick, so that's 3 of the 4. The only one missing is Moritz.
Moritz, yeah. Moritz, I think, isn't here, but
Great to have you, Newman.
okay. Well, so yeah, welcome to everyone. Next.
Nothing's playing right now.
I'm not talking to you. Sorry. I Google just announced nothing's playing right now.
Side story, if you got 2 minutes. I was just talking about this to my Uber driver back from the airport, and apparently he was talking with his wife, and Siri interrupted him, and he said, "Shut up, B word," and his wife thought it was him. They've been arguing about it for 2 years. Sorry, I had to mention that.
I was in a call the other day with Alexi and Kevin and what was it that and Kevin referred to him as Losha. It's like, what's Losha? I mean, it's like, oh, apparently this is, a shortening for Alexi, but Kevin mostly uses it because if he uses Alexi, his Amazon device usually thinks it's talking to him, and using Losha avoids this. So Tex has just rejigged the agenda to bring the other item up. So we'll cover that next. Yeah. So obviously we have a bunch of new members. I guess one thing is that we will have some people leaving. I think, is it just me stepping down?
No. Well, so Adam's coming for re-election.
Okay.
Philip is up for re-election. Ronald is dropping off, and you are dropping off, is what I have currently.
Okay.
Sandeep will be staying on until April, as I have it currently.
Yeah. So I guess Ronald and I were stepping down. In particular, that means that I guess, and I don't know, we haven't sort of agreed a process as to whether we're going to re-elect for all roles or keep roles as they are. But in particular, the chair role will need somebody to fill it. The main responsibilities are, I guess, chairing this call, working with Tex usually to set the agenda for this meeting. There is an Intersect steering committee, which the chair nominally has a seat on. I will say that thus far that committee seems to have been predominantly concerned with finding a purpose for the Intersect steering committee. So I can't say that I've paid it a great deal of attention yet. But if at some point it starts to do something useful, then there might be that's also a role to take place. So I would suggest that we have sort of internal elections for that, using probably a very simple hands lifted thing rather than needing to come up with a particular strategy, but maybe invite people by next time to express interest if you are interested in taking over the chairship of this committee, and then after that we can have a vote. Yeah, Christian.
Just to add on that too, I would recommend we nominate the chair once the other elections are done, so you have a full house.
Sure, that makes sense.
And Sandeep can do interim duties. And then once we do have that, we do need to revamp the charter, because it was only till August when we started this new nomination process. Even though I don't suspect much will change.
Yeah.
Now, for those that are new or currently standing, I guess I would also ask, would you recommend or suggest a formal process for this, or do you just want to have a conversation and agree by consensus? We can do a thumbs up or thumbs down for either option there. Adam. Muted again, sir.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is we get some sound from you. It's not that you're totally muted. It's just that that sound does not correspond to words in any language that I'm aware of.
So I would suspect that we should make a formal process of maybe people self-nominating themselves for the role so that we know people who are actually interested in the role. And then, you know, if there's only one person nominating themselves, then hey, go for it. But I would like to see a more formal procedure event.
Adam?
Try again.
Okay. Test. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It defaulted to the microphone on my webcam, which doesn't have a microphone. Ergo, what you guys were getting. So, we actually do have that process both in the, I believe, in the governance document for OSC in general, in terms of how open source projects on Cardano should govern themselves, and then the membership and community committee had a Google Doc, like a spreadsheet nomination and voting process document that I think Tex has somewhere that we could probably use, so we don't have to reinvent that if necessary. But I believe, yeah, we default to like a show of hands, and assuming that's not contentious, we go from there and kind of escalate up the path as necessary, keeping it minimum impact in terms of how complex we need to make it.
So is anyone opposed to me creating a Google Slides and then just having any and all who are interested in being a nominee adding a slide for themselves?
Sounds fine, so long as we make sure to publicize that.
It'll be in the shared drive for now, and then I would say the decisions will be publicized, but it's primarily an internal conversation.
I mean, publicize it within the
Yes.
the committee to make sure that anyone, not just in the minutes. I think we should explicitly call out to any members who aren't here today to say.
I'll make sure it's marketed in both the Slack and the Discord. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the budget draft. I guess, Tex, is this yours or Christian?
Yep. So we just threw some interim items on here, but this is for anything with the treasury spend that this committee wants to enact or propose. This is where we put our thoughts in there, come up with a consensus, and we submit it to the budget committee for review. The main thing that I'm all game for, and we got good reception at the summit with, and some of the community, is the maintainer retainer piece. My defense on that is 1,500 times 50 repos times 2 representatives. I think at 35 cents ADA, it was like 1.5 million or something close, or 750,000. 150 times 3, right? Or 3.5, whatever that comes out to. But this is for us to talk about over the next couple sessions. I don't think it's due until right before the AMM, officially our final draft.
I guess one question I would have is, so the TSC also has a maintenance item on their budget that I think is basically calculated by looking at the total spend over 2024 and adding basically a buffer. I think we said we want to add 35% on top of that. So that will to some extent be duplicating what's being requested here, and maybe that needs to be.
Well, and I think we need to specify exactly what kind of maintainer it is. I'm targeting this more for not the core suppliers because that's what TSC mostly covers. This would be in like at community people like Adam himself and others, just to diversify that portfolio. And we can come up with the acceptance criteria for that application process and use the same 30-day trial we used for Adam before it turns into a contract. So we have some safeguards for that and keep out the redundancy.
That makes sense. Adam?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that luckily,
No, you. Luckily, we got luckily, but nothing more.
I think you have to turn off your webcam and just give us your, there you go. And
might not have been important enough anyway.
test. That'd be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Apparently the webcam wants to do the work today. But we were again talking less about a break fix and kind of issues maintainer and more of an individual.
It did it again.
Wow.
I think what Adam's getting at is it covers a lot of aspects that are not roadmap development and more of day-to-day management. So that kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean, the same is my point is that the TSC does have exactly the same. It's not roadmap items, but is in fact I think the assumption is that basically 60% of the budget will go towards maintenance rather than towards new feature development. But I can understand if the focus of this program is more
community
let's ensure that we have a diversified maintainer list and trying to provide funding for maintainers out of those outside of those core groups, then that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Robin.
Excuse the naive question. Maybe it was answered already, but is this specifically focused on repositories and maintainers under Intersect umbrella, or is this open for the entire and wide community open source space?
So this covers Intersect GitHub repos, but this is where we include community pieces via our incubation program. So anyone in the community can apply to be in the incubation piece, and this would tie into that as long as they hit the growth and mature phase, just so we risk mitigate projects that are potentially going to be archives or deprecated depending on consumer adoption or contributor adoption. But we do have a process and a framework to regulate this and make sure it applies. And then we also have a contribution ladder that dictates what a maintainer is and how you progress into that. So we have all the safeguards in place, and we put it at 50 repos because core Cardano is right about 28. And then there's some auxiliary, but that gives us a 20 project buffer, give or take, depending on what the community comes in and what this committee and the TSC adopts in the incubation. So
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you be able to share a link for me to understand more about this framework, to read into it?
Yep. We do have the framework on the Gitbook page. The incubation criteria and the contribution ladder I'll send over. They're in decks at the moment because they're not finalized just yet.
Cool. Okay, thanks. I go through that.
so, quick question. Do some of those repos cover documentation? So it's not all core code stuff?
Some of them do, yes.
Yeah, because it would be great to see the documentation side of this also funded to some certain extent, rather than just have it focused on core.
There is a question. I guess I don't know whether all relevant documentation has been considered for inclusion there. So there is some documentation in that, but I don't know whether.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that we often overlook in open source projects is the importance of good documentation and onboarding and contribution ladders and things like that. And we've got great contribution here, but getting external, so it's not all Tex and Christian and other folks writing this. I'm not sure who wrote all of this wonderful stuff, but to grow somebody into that role and have that funded would be wonderful.
Completely.
Sandeep?
Other than the maintainer part, there are also other topics within that. There also, what is the expectation on our side is an input on some of the parts that probably were not familiar. So there's also some legal stuff that are mentioned. How is the budgeting thought out in those aspects?
Maybe could you go back to sharing the budget spreadsheet? Thanks. So,
Yeah, so we do have, for everyone to understand high level the budget process. So there's going to be a withdrawal from the Treasury submitted as one thing by Intersect, working with all the committees, and there's several different budgets coming into that. TSC, I think, will have the biggest piece since it's all core Cardano development. Everyone relies on it. OSC gets to complement that in the how we do development section. So all of these buckets that the budget committee does is they're going to allocate a certain amount of million of ADA to each category. And that's core development, research, outreach, education, grants, and some other categories. So we just took a stab at what we think we want to offer. The maintainer retainer program is the only one that I'm heavily for. The rest of these are for debate, but we did it based off the service catalog that helps do development for projects and propose that in there as food for thought. So that's kind of our idea behind it, but we didn't put any direct costs really into that per se. And all of these can be debated or removed in the future by community review.
the second thing is mostly about project support.
Yeah, so this is not at all a completed document. Its ideas, its draft. All of you should have access to this accordingly. But basically, all of this down here, it should include some of the things that you all are talking about or asking for. And so they just have not, like, this has not been organized as what are our top priorities as of yet. So we need to build out the rest of the definition and then what the cost is, and then go from there.
Just briefly adding on that, we took in stuff from our maturity pilot to help list in here as well, like a bug bounty program, etc. The thing that is something to think about too is, which I think came up in the TSC budget call anyway, since we set up the security working group according to our policy, there's a team from IOG we could sponsor for a 24/7 incident response. And we can also change their job to be more hybrid roles, i.e. more community outreach, etc., or project support type stuff. But it's 3 people, I think, at 50,000 a year, just so we have that coverage year round. But just something for this committee to think about because it'd be something we'd sponsor in the budget.
So Tex, did you have any particular topics from this that you wanted to bring up in this call, or just a call out to look at this offline?
Yeah, it's a call out to look at this offline asynchronously here, add any edits or comments or whichever. There's versioning history, so I'm not going to lose any changes that anyone would make here, but if you want to highlight it or call it out as yourself, you can. I'm not an organization. I'm not going to play an organization trump card here. So however it is that you want to organize it, you added your input to this, that's fine. Or if you just want to add input, that's fine as well. Yeah, final delivery of this, I believe, is October. I just saw a map on that. Or everyone should have seen their email as a member. So I'd refer back to that for that timeline. Sandeep, sorry.
I was going to ask about the timeline again regarding the input expected by what date. Yeah, maybe we can again have a agenda point to this for the coming meeting with more inputs to discuss, reports to discuss, so that everybody has time to think over the points.
Sounds good. I think I just saw that Nick might not be able to make the next meeting, so that would be led by you. I think that's perfectly appropriate to assign that here over the next 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
Nick, will you be able to make it one last time 2 weeks after that, as far as like handoff is concerned?
I'm just taking a look. That would be the 18th October.
I've not looked at my calendar, but
No, the
calendar.
17th. Yes, I can be there. I'll be there on the 17th.
Okay. And then I might ask you for one more, just because the vote is going to run through the 20th. We have an AMM on the 19th. So if you're able to attend on the 31st, I think that would be the last time that we'd have a.
I'm not mostly. I'm on holiday for that period. So
Understood.
Okay, I'll meet you wherever you're going so we can get it.
okay, it's be in Egypt. So.
Okay. If anything, we may just pull you into the agenda sync meetings there, and we'll do it with the new chairs. Cool.
So I think that if we don't have anything more on the budget, then I think the last remaining item is open forum. So does anyone have any topics they would like to bring up and discuss today? Sandy?
I'm interested in the previous point, one of the earlier point in previous meetings about the dependencies within the repos. Would also be good to have that somewhere within the budget if that is required, or at least some points covering that. I think it is pretty important to address that from within the OSC.
Agreed. Open source library working group's going to kick off next week, scheduled time, and I kind of tasking that for them to help bring up to the committee, depending on time constraints for our members.
So is there a current report of the dependencies at all? And when does that working group meet?
Working groups next week, and I don't think there's a current report. I can check with IOG devs if they've done something in the past.
I mean, I have done something like that in the past, certainly many years ago, but I guess it depends what, there, and I think didn't you actually run something at one point that extracted that?
Yeah, but that's only limited. I only looked at the GovTool related ones.
Okay.
And then,
yeah, I was just curious if someone had run like one of the pay-per-view tools like Snick or whatever it is against all the repos to find out what the dependencies were and had done anything deeper like that.
I'm happy to get it set up and run it. If you can have a link to that tool, Dan.
All right.
I think Sneak you have to pay for, don't you? But
oh yeah.
Isn't Pool Tool supposed to help with that as well?
I'm also not sure. Does Sneak handle Haskell? I'm not sure.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I've used Sneak before, on other projects, but I do come from a big company, so and it's just nice to have that as a baseline.
I can try Genealogos and see whether we can get the configuration from Nix.
Last month, I did that on the Miro board manually. Not all the repo that you have, but like the Ouroboros consensus, all this stuff. I wanted Cardano node, Cardano API. I wanted to understand that, and so I went into each Kabbalah, and I did something on the Miro board. That was painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we have a list or an idea of all the different languages and that are used currently?
We have Rust. I have that somewhere. Let me look it up. Haskell, some Java, TypeScript. The other ones are.
Yeah, we have. There's a few in JSON, a few in HTML. Obviously Haskell. And then there's the ones that we're watching, which are in the Rust, and then we'll be looking to add the Go to our watch as well when that comes live.
Go is that interesting?
Agda.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah,
trigger
I
lets
see.
us track things that aren't in our GitHub. So
Yeah. I would see if you could get Intersect to ante up for if I don't know how to I always say sneak, but I'm not sure it's sneak. It might be snick. To ante up for that and have it run on a reoccurring basis, like at least once a year, to do an audit on dependencies, and it's a good baseline tool. But I don't know what the costs are. I never had to pay for it. So.
Well, I am working on the open source office budget, so I did put a line item for miscellaneous tech just for stuff like this. So
Are you thinking about this from a security perspective, Diane, or like you want to look
both?
for?
It does nice. There's lots of features, so licensing, understanding all the licenses that are in the dependencies, understanding what are the dependencies, and it does some good security stuff as well. It's just a tool that I'm used to using for this sort of work. I'm sure there's others, so that's why I asked, but this is the one. I don't know.
By looking at the dependencies, there's something like you're gonna see in a house called libs. It's like there's something like Cardano API, and I was wondering, what is supposed to be the role of this repository, and then it's supposed to be an API, so it's like abstracting stuff behind the API. And what you're gonna see is like in many repositories, they are bypassing this API. They are using the API and then bypassing it. So yeah,
Yes.
like you can learn a lot by looking at that.
Yes, Cardano API is not. Yeah.
No, there's an issue with that.
I'll try running genealogos against something and see whether I can get. That will generate an S bomb. So, which then we can use in various other tools. Okay. Any other business in the last 8 minutes?
Yeah, hang on just a second. I want to follow on that here. I'm trying to get a lot more organized for us here. So, okay, this did not do what I wanted it to do. Okay. I just created this quick document here. We may have had something like this before, but I wanted to make sure that this was accessible to the committee. So I just called this OSC tool list open. This will basically give us a way to format or list everything that is a tool, what the description is, how we can use it, if there's a cost, and then we can mark yes or no as to whether or not it's in use. And then for reference here, I put this in a folder called OSC Tools, and I reformatted the drive here a little bit so that it's clear. Anything that you want to know about the votes or the voting process that we went through, this is where you would go here to work on the OSC strategy. I'm going to make sure we get the other reference docs added in here. OSC policies, we'll make sure to fill this out because we do have those documents elsewhere, but I'll make sure that they're accessible for you here. But anything that's going to have OSC in front of it is going to be your primary work folders here, and we can add as need be. Questions, comments, concerns?
If we have a few minutes, I wouldn't mind hearing some feedback from Christian and Tex on how the OS Summit in EU went, and what sort of engagement you got at the booth and response to your talks.
Yeah, I can go first. What was really cool is they did announce the LF Decentralized Trust, and then Hedera mentioned they donated their source code. Fun fact for everyone here, that was the original plan with Cardano and the LF, but due to politics, which is abundant everywhere, it didn't happen, so Hedera joined up with LF to do it. But the cool thing is, even though we were late to register, so we couldn't do keynotes or side panels, we did get in with Diane on a side talk, and she included us with a bunch of Web 2 people. And there's probably 1,000 to 1,500, so we probably had foot traffic close to 300. Daniela Barbosa is the Linux LF Decentralized Trust, formerly Hyperledger VP. And we also got to run into Dirk Hundel, or I did, who was originally chief open source officer behind that project I was mentioning earlier at CF. So we got to meet with him. We had a good side event. Got to actually introduce the paid open source model, which introduces that maintainer retention program. And I'll share that deck with y'all. And it had really good reception. And then Bitergia got announced. I think we probably got 20 new members, potentially. But this will be a good break-in. This is what Intersect is. And then if our panel talk goes through in November, Diane, I think that'll be the official, hey, we're here kind of talk. And then I'm trying to see if we can get to the summit next year. But I'll leave it up to Tex and Adam to give their thoughts as well.
Yeah, so I'll pop in here. I would say after having some time, or 24 plus hours worth of travel to reflect on it, we had some great traffic to the booth over the 3 days that we were there. The first day did seem just a little bit slow, but of course everyone was focused on some of the other talks and things that were happening. It was kind of front loaded. Everything happened on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday was really more focused talks if you were like super interested. But long story short, yeah, we did get probably 200 plus people, 300 plus people through the booth itself. We got some interesting feedback because our logo, or our banner rather, did not include anything about Cardano or blockchain. I believe the consensus among the three of us was that actually worked out to our benefit, because we got to talk about it and explain that a little bit more in depth. Didn't shy people away from coming up to talk to us in the first place. We did enact or present cowboy culture, and that was a real big, strong contender for us. Everyone wanted to come to us because they wanted to talk about the hats. So that got the conversation started a lot of the way. And even when it seemed as if they were losing interest the moment we mentioned Cardano or blockchain, we were still able to recover. And the big takeaway here is basically, when we go to a future event, we will more strongly work on marketing. Hey, you might be in Web 2. Here's what that Web 2 to Web 3 transition looks like. And here's what we're doing at Intersect and how you can get involved. Very nice out there, Diane. But yeah, that's. I'll let Adam give a piece here, because he's probably got more than what I'm saying.
Yeah, testing. I can try to say this, but essentially, yeah, like what I said in the chat, the biggest thing was that the larger open source community was like, "Oh, your blockchain." There was a very vampires and garlic reaction at the moment. So we have a lot of work to do on that front, but I think the ones that we did manage to wrangle in to keep on the cowboy theme and actually have a discussion with were. There was a lot of like eyes being open and light bulbs clicking on, which was really encouraging to see. So we just have to keep at it, in my opinion. So it was definitely a worthwhile venture, but something we have to keep on doing to make sure that we position Cardano correctly as the most open source, the most peer-reviewed blockchain platform on the planet. It makes sense for us to be there and continue to be there as a leader at the forefront.
When you were talking to these people and understanding they have concerns when it comes to blockchain technology, do you know why? Like what are the concerns, and was it all the same for these people?
Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX. You know, it's really that crypto is only, and blockchain is only a degenerate gambler scam artist paradise. And really trying to overcome that. And kind of emphasize some of the other key takeaways, you know, that we have worked with some large nation state and large corporations on some of the more actual real world useful use cases like supply chains and track and trace and traceability and things that blockchain is well suited for, and helping kind of walk people through that. We're just an alternative to Postgres when you need certain assurances like immutability and traceability and everything. So, like I kind of mentioned as well, it was also interesting to refine the pitch when you're already talking to somebody that's highly technical from a, like, I write the kernel of Linux perspective, like, and trying to pitch him on why blockchain is a good idea is much different than kind of like your average person and saying, well, be your own bank. Like you got to go a little bit deeper under the hood to reach that person. So,
Yeah.
We were also talking, I talked with Daniela too, and she gave me to the LF research team, but apparently there's not been a definitive article that's extensive as to what the learning journey is from Web 2 to Web 3. So they're interested in partnering with us to actually get something conclusive out there. Because this is really good exposure for both of our teams on that.
Just one last piece of admin there. I don't want to close out that topic too quickly, but I would say we're more than happy to take that to the OSC Slack channel there. I did want to mention, we talked about it with Nicholas Clark, the chair, earlier, but for Adam, Ronald, and Philip, who's not here today, basically, depending on what were to happen with the vote, we would like for you to continue attending meetings, I would say until the 31st, as far as handoff is concerned, but of course that is muted if you are reelected. Ronald, I don't know if you still have the time, but there are still options or seats open, or sorry, we only have 3 applicants right now who are verified, and there's 4 seats that we're voting for. So I just throw that out there as a quick note. But then as far as the new group here, I know it was mentioned as a volunteer period for as much as 1 year. Because of the way that our vote was structured, or the way the committee was structured here anyway, you all would actually come up for vote in April of 2025, as the cohort that comes in with the Intersect elections would stay for the full year. That's not in any way to kick anybody out. I would say just be aware that in April, y'all are classified as that cohort that's up for re-election. And that'll be with Sandeep, and again, in April of 2025. So just want to make that clear.
Okay. So could I ask one more question? So you have
Sure.
3 people who have self-nominated for 4 seats.
Yes.
So you're looking for 1 more. So, okay.
We are pending Ruth's application, and I guess Ronald may have had a question there as well, but and we're looking for any more. The application period is open until the 27th. So if you did have any friends that had wanted to apply the first time, had missed it, or anything of that nature, feel free to direct them to the Intersect website, knowledge base, my DMs, anything of that nature. I can make sure they have the correct links.
Okay. And the deadline again was?
September 27th, next Friday.
Okay.
1 week. Did you have a question, Ronald, or are you good?
No, all good. You explained well. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Well, we're cool. Or was that a goodbye from Adam, or was that a I have a topic from Adam?
No, it was I had a hard stop 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
Well, all in
seeing
favor
as
of
we're over, all in favor of saying goodbye, say goodbye.
See you.
Cheers.
Welcome to all the new members. Just wanted to say that. And I will be here next week as well.
And if you have any
Sure.
issues, it's never my fault. Blame Tex. See y'all.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you all.
Right.